In the heart of the Caribbean, a powerful storm brews, one that could change the course of history. The U.S. has strategically amassed a formidable naval presence near Venezuela, signaling potential deep strikes against drug cartels operating on its soil. After weeks of decisive military action against smuggling operations, will these maneuvers plunge the region into chaos? On a significant day in late August, President Trump ordered a powerful fleet of at least 8 naval warships to the South Caribbean. With F-35 fighter jets soaring overhead and roughly 5,000 personnel on board, this was not merely a show of force, it marked a concerted effort to dismantle the drug networks plaguing the U.S. Days later, American forces targeted and eliminated a vessel tied to the notorious Tren de Aragua cartel, setting the stage for an escalating confrontation. "We will confront drug cartels wherever their operations threaten U.S. interests," declared Secretary of State Marco Rubio, intensifying pressure on Venezuela's beleaguered government. As tensions mounted, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro accused the U.S. of orchestrating a plot to topple his regime. In response, he showcased his military might, conducting exercises and dispatching F-16 jets purposefully close to U.S. ships. Yet, the U.S. remained resolute, targeting further vessels linked to narcotics trafficking while preparing for the next critical move. Rumors swirling in political corridors suggest that U.S. military leaders are drawing up plans for deep strikes on Venezuelan soil. Anonymous sources hint at imminent action, perhaps within weeks, aimed at crippling drug trafficking operations directly within the country. While this escalation was not entirely unforeseen, the implications are monumental. Will the U.S. actually proceed with these airstrikes? Despite Trump not yet approving such actions, discussions buzz behind closed doors on how to dismantle the cartels once and for all. The U.S. fleet, laden with advanced fighter jets, Reaper drones, and guided missile destroyers, is ready for precision strikes targeting cartel leaders and essential infrastructures. However, amidst rising tensions, could diplomatic talks still bear fruit? Reports indicate that dialogue between the U.S. and Venezuelan officials is underway, facilitated by Middle Eastern intermediaries. Maduro has shown willingness to aid against the Tren de Aragua cartel, revealing a potential path for de-escalation. Yet, can this beleaguered leader truly be trusted? As the U.S. grapples with its next moves, conflicting signals blur the path ahead. Will the quest for stability lead to war, or can a fragile peace emerge from the threats and bluster? The stakes have never been higher. How will these developing scenarios unfold for both nations and, indeed, the world? The answers remain shrouded in uncertainty, but one thing is clear: the tide is turning, and the repercussions will resonate far beyond the Caribbean shores. Tension hangs thick in the air as global eyes fixate on the Caribbean. The United States is poised on the brink of a monumental decision: deep military strikes targeting drug cartels in Venezuela. After weeks of strategic maneuvering, the stage is set for a dramatic escalation in America's war against narcotics, and the stakes have never been higher. In late August, a formidable fleet of U.S. Navy vessels, including 8 warships and powerful F-35 fighter jets, made their presence known in the South Caribbean. This was no mere show of force, it marked the initiation of a serious campaign against drug smuggling that has plagued the region. A chilling warning echoed across the waters: the U.S. was prepared to take decisive action. Days passed, and the first strike was launched against vessels tied to the notorious Tren de Aragua cartel, signaling a robust commitment to dismantling cartels that have threatened the U.S. for so long. As U.S. forces continued their operations, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro responded with vehement rhetoric, decrying American actions as an attempt to topple his regime. His loyalists mobilized, flaunting military capability with F-16 jets performing daring flybys of U.S. warships. Yet, despite the saber rattling, the U.S. remained undeterred, strategically expanding its operations and preparing for a more profound strike. Sources have now confirmed that military officials are actively exploring options for targeting traffickers on Venezuelan soil, with imminent operations expected to unfold within weeks. Such strikes would elevate the conflict to a new level, as the U.S. transitions from deterrence to action, a reflection of the administration's growing frustration over Maduro's inaction against drug trafficking. The timeline leading up to this potential confrontation has been methodical. Analysts had long anticipated this course of action, watching as the U.S. initiated its Caribbean presence, honed in on suspected smugglers, and proclaimed an unwavering determination to eradicate the flow of fentanyl and other narcotics. With Maduro's regime becoming increasingly aggressive, a direct strike on Venezuelan territory seems inevitable. Will the U.S. escalate its military operations against the drug cartels? As discussions intensify within the Trump administration, the promise of drone strikes targeting cartel leaders and drug production facilities looms large. The chilling thought lingers: how will Venezuela react? With the specter of violence hanging overhead, both nations stand at a precipice, and the world's eyes are glued to the unfolding drama. As the U.S. continues to assemble its formidable fleet, the tension is palpable. What's next in this high-stakes game of international chess? Only time will reveal whether diplomacy holds, or if the wrath of military intervention will be unleashed upon Venezuelan soil, forever altering the landscape of this deadly battle against narcotics. Previously, we learned that while no deep strikes on Venezuela have been officially approved, intense planning is underway behind closed doors. The surge in U.S. military presence stems from frustration with Nicolas Maduro's failure to halt drug shipments leaving his country. Now, the exact details of these potential strikes remain tightly sealed. Yet insiders disclose that the first moves will likely involve drone attacks aimed at cartel networks, their leaders, and narcotics labs. Forget large-scale missile barrages, bombings, or boots on the ground, at least for now. Instead, relentless MQ-9 Reaper drones could methodically eliminate critical cartel figures and operations. When pressed on these revelations, the White House deflected, pointing back to President Trump's blunt warning: "We'll see what happens. Venezuela is sending us their gang members, their drug dealers, and drugs. It's not acceptable." Trump has seriously mulled deploying strikes within Venezuelan borders for months. Early September reports confirmed he's weighing a full spectrum of options to cripple Latin America's darkest underworld. This isn't a sudden move. The broader campaign has been carefully crafted over time. Earlier this year, the administration declared multiple cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. A bold shift: these groups are no longer simple criminals but enemies employing assassination, terror, and brute force. They control vast swaths of territory, acting as pseudo-governments, especially in Mexico. Their unchecked operations threaten American safety, national security, and even the fragile balance in the Western Hemisphere. These labels come with grave consequences. Shortly after, Trump authorized lethal military actions against cartel members marked as terrorists. The battle lines have been drawn. The stakes skyrocket. So, what's next? Will drone strikes ignite a new theater of conflict? Can America strike hard enough behind enemy lines without igniting full-scale war? And how will Maduro's regime respond to this pressure cooker on their doorstep? The atmosphere is electric, the ocean air tinged with tension as waves lap beneath the shadow of warships and buzzing drones. The world waits with bated breath. The clock is ticking. One question looms: has the moment arrived to unleash the next blow in America's war on narcotics? Or will delicate, hidden negotiations stave off open confrontation, for now? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain: a storm is gathering on the horizon. In a world that seems to spiral into chaos, tensions mounted high between the United States and Venezuela. As whispers of a looming confrontation loomed, all eyes turned to the Caribbean Sea, where an impressive flotilla of U.S. naval might gathered, ready to challenge the powerful drug cartels that had plagued the region for years. The atmosphere crackled with the anticipation of conflict, and questions echoed: how far would America go to combat this relentless threat? In late August, President Trump ordered a formidable fleet of warships armed with advanced fighter jets to cruise near Venezuela's coastline. This significant buildup marked the beginning of a relentless campaign against the notorious drug-running organizations that operated with impunity. Days later, the U.S. military struck, dismantling vessels linked to the Tren de Aragua cartel, sending a clear message that America meant business. Secretary of State Marco Rubio declared boldly, "We'll confront drug cartels wherever they threaten our security." Yet, the Venezuelan government, led by President Maduro, stood resolute, portraying the U.S. maneuvers as an invasion attempt. Maduro flaunted his military's might, showcasing F-16 sorties near American warships. Despite his bravado, the U.S. showed no signs of retreat, intensifying its operations with additional targeted strikes against drug smuggling. As the clock ticked, insiders revealed that the U.S. military was deliberating options for deep strikes on Venezuelan soil, including drone attacks aimed at cartel leaders in laboratories. Would Washington escalate its involvement further? The stakes were heightening. Those in the know suggested that these strikes could unfold imminently. But diplomacy played a wild card. Unconfirmed reports indicated that middlemen were brokering conversations between the two nations, with Maduro hinting at potential concessions. Could this lead to an unexpected resolution? Or was it merely a delay before the storm? Caught in this dynamic crossfire, the Tren de Aragua cartel loomed larger than life. Not just a drug trafficking entity, its reach extended across borders, enveloping activities from extortion to human trafficking, all while its leaders preserved a chokehold on the very fabric of society. The Trump administration had marked this cartel as a top target, signaling that the war against narcotics was far from over. In the corridors of power, a palpable tension flourished. Trump maintained that America would strike decisively against those who threaten its safety, treating drug traffickers as combatants rather than mere criminals. If we see an opportunity, a senior official remarked, we'll act. Yet as plans evolved, officials pondered the efficacy of their military tactics amidst the complexities of international diplomacy. Would talks yield peace or push both nations to the brink of a much larger conflict? Maduro's repeated assertions of sovereignty could signal either a call for collaboration or a desperate bid to hold on to power amid escalating pressure. The stage was set for an impending clash that could reshape the balance in the region. How would this high-stakes game of strategy, power, and survival unfold? And who would emerge as the victor? Tension in the Americas is reaching a boiling point. As a powerful naval fleet gathers in the South Caribbean, the specter of military strikes against Venezuela looms ever closer. The U.S. aims to dismantle drug cartels threatening its borders, specifically targeting the infamous Tren de Aragua, a group notorious for its reach across many nations, even extending into Canada. Can diplomatic efforts defuse this escalating situation, or is conflict inevitable? Recently, President Trump's administration declared Tren de Aragua a primary target, resulting in the arrest and deportation of numerous Venezuelans in the U.S. with cartel ties. In a surprising move, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro reached out to the U.S. via letter, denying that his country is a significant source of illegal drugs and urging dialogue to resolve tensions. He expressed a desire for peace through constructive discussions. However, trust is a fragile commodity. Maduro's government has been labeled untrustworthy, and relations with the U.S. remain fraught. In his characteristic defiance, Maduro has accused the United States of attempting to overthrow his regime, framing himself as a defender against the so-called empire. The U.S., meanwhile, has responded bluntly, with White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt asserting, the Maduro regime is not the legitimate government of Venezuela. It operates like a narco-terror cartel, and Maduro himself is a fugitive dealing drugs into our country. Amid this turmoil, questions loom large. If mere words cannot mend the rift, will military force become the only option? While the U.S. continues to prepare for potential strikes, it is clear that Maduro is also bracing for confrontation, intensifying training efforts among militia forces. Recent recruitment drives have swelled their ranks, with many citizens enlisting to defend their homeland. As urgent calls to action echo, fear and determination intertwine. The prospect of war grows more tangible each day, raising a chilling query: are both nations on an irreversible collision course? The clock is ticking, and decisions are looming large. The pressure is mounting. The previous buildup shows the U.S. poised to strike deeper into Venezuelan territory. Now, Venezuela responds not with diplomacy, but with mass recruitment, a desperate, raw surge of civilians turning into militia. What does such a force really mean for the fate of this fragile nation? In recent weeks, the Venezuelan government has called its citizens to arms with an urgency that crackles in the air. Streets echo with the clang of metal as thousands of civilians, many well beyond their prime, don combat uniforms for the first time. They march toward training grounds where rifles are handed to trembling hands unaccustomed to weapons. For some, it's a matter of survival, for others, a fervent duty. The smell of sweat and gun oil pervades the makeshift camps, mingled with voices steely with resolve. Francisco Ojeda, at 69, stands shoulder to shoulder with younger recruits, declaring with trembling conviction that if battle comes, he will face it head-on. "Even the cats will come out," he says, eyes bright with defiance. Alongside him, 67-year-old Gladys Rodriguez declares, "No U.S. government will invade our land." Their words are as raw as the reality they face, a population rallying to defend territory, yet largely untrained, more driven by desperation than strategy. But beneath this patriotic veneer lurks a darker calculus. Experts like Benigno Alarcón see a chilling strategy at play. He warns that these recruits are not just defenders but pawns, a human shield crafted by Maduro himself. By pushing civilians into harm's way, the government is betting the price of any foreign assault will be measured in lost lives, a grim toll designed to sway global opinion against intervention. The image of elderly men and women firing rifles evokes poignancy, but also tragedy, as they could become the first victims of this escalating conflict. Maduro boasts that 8 million have joined the militia ranks, a figure that sounds more like propaganda than reality. If true, it would be unprecedented. If false, it exposes a regime desperate to project strength amidst growing international pressure. The truth is likely somewhere in between, but either way, it creates an atmosphere thick with uncertainty and tension. The sound of recruitment, the sight of uniformed civilians training with shaky expertise, the ticking clock all point to one question. When will this build-up explode into the next phase of conflict? Will these hastily armed volunteers stand as a formidable defense, or will they become tragic casualties in a war whose stakes are still unfolding? The world watches, breaths held, as Venezuela draws its lines in the sand, ready to face the storm ahead. The previous chapter revealed how Venezuela's president brags about a militia swelling by millions, likely an exaggerated number, but undeniably, ordinary citizens are joining en masse. They're being sent to guard the country's corners, prepared to resist any invasion. Yet, why hasn't the United States sent troops marching across Venezuela's borders? Could it be hesitation rooted in the potential chaos of armed clashes with these freshly armed civilians? The truth is, the U.S. holds vast military power right off the coast, thousands of Marines and sailors stand ready, but setting foot inside Venezuela on a large scale would be a daring gamble. Imagine the deafening roar of gunfire, the clash of militia forces against American troops. Such a scenario risks spiraling out of control beyond anyone's calculation. Instead, whispers from inside reveal a different plan. Targeted strikes launched from drones and missiles seem the chosen path. Silent, swift, and calculated, but still explosive enough to shake the region to its core. Venezuelan political analyst Aníbal Sánchez Ismael warned, an assault on Venezuelan soil would spark everything from fiery diplomatic rebukes to ruthless crackdowns on suspected collaborators, and could unite the nation fiercely to defend its sovereignty. So, here's the twist. Could these precise strikes backfire catastrophically, driving citizens into the arms of Maduro's regime instead of fracturing it? Or might they ignite the spark needed to topple the government? The military pieces are already on the board. The warships, the MQ-5 fighter jets, the MQ-9 Reaper drones. All primed for orders. President Trump has made this fight his personal crusade against the cartels tying Venezuela to floods of illegal narcotics into the United States. Remember, years before, the Justice Department charged Maduro himself with drug trafficking conspiracies, accusing him of cozying up with cartels spreading chaos along American borders. But what happens next? Will the U.S. strike land with surgical precision, dismantling cartel operations? Or will it ignite a powder keg of nationalist fury, uniting a divided nation against outside interference? And what secret advantages or hidden risks lurk beneath these unfolding plans, waiting to surprise us all? The saga escalates as the Trump administration cranks up the heat on Venezuela's leader, Nicolas Maduro. Earlier this year, the Justice Department hit him with drug trafficking charges, accusing him of forging dark alliances with cartels that funnel cocaine and gang members straight into America's borders. This isn't just crime, it's a chilling campaign of narcoterrorism. Now, the stakes climb even higher. The U.S. government isn't wasting time. It has slapped a jaw-dropping $50 million bounty on Maduro's head, signaling a merciless determination to pressurize him relentlessly. Dialogue? That's barely on the table. Inside whispers reveal that figures like Marco Rubio and others within the administration are pushing hard for one goal: regime change. When Maduro finally sent a letter to President Trump this September, it was met not with a hand extended, but with a stormy rebuttal. Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, dismissed it as a collection of falsehoods, reaffirming the U.S. stance that Maduro's regime is utterly illegitimate. The message was scathing but clear: every tool, every measure, would be used to cut off the deadly drug supply streaming from Venezuela into the United States. Yet, beneath the fury, cooperation still threads a fragile path. Somehow, despite the bitter tension, both nations are coordinating in certain areas, particularly deportation flights sending Venezuelan citizens from the U.S. back to Caracas. These flights are regular, a quiet reminder that diplomacy still flickers like a dim light in this darkness. Rick Grinnell, the U.S. envoy working on Venezuela, reportedly keeps pushing for some sort of diplomatic breakthrough. But given the relentless escalation so far, this flicker may be fated to burn out. The bitter truth is this: diplomacy might not sway these cartels. The traffickers, shielded by violence and corruption, respond only to force. The U.S. military has already proven its capability to hunt down these smugglers at sea, tracking boats across the shimmering Caribbean waters and eradicating them with chilling precision. The sound of waves breaking against the hulls, the sharp hum of MQ-9 Reaper drones overhead, all tell a story of relentless pursuit. If the military can pick off vessels on the water, how close are they to pinpointing the very origins of these narcotics on Venezuelan soil? How soon until they strike at the heart of cartel operations? The next move may come in the form of covert strikes inside Venezuela, targeted, unyielding, and designed to dismantle the elusive drug networks. The question hanging in the Caribbean air isn't if, but when. The scent of tension is thick, as palpable as the salty breeze off the South Caribbean Sea. Will this simmering conflict finally break open, dragging the region into a storm of fire and fury? Or will unseen hands pull back the curtain and prevent a descent into wider chaos? Every shadow conceals a secret. Every silent drone may already be drawing its sights. As the world watches, the stage is set. The next act could change everything. What if the ocean becomes a silent hunter, its dark waves concealing a new war? The United States has already set the stage. A massive flotilla, 8 warships, dozens of F-35 fighter jets, and 4,500 to 5,000 sailors has sailed to the South Caribbean. The air thrums with engines, the sea smells of oil and salt, and every ripple feels charged. This force presses hard on Venezuela, the nation harboring drug smuggling routes. After the fleet arrived, the first wave of action struck. Several boats carrying narcotics were intercepted and destroyed in a display of ruthless precision. The sound of gunfire echoed across the water, the acrid scent of burning fuel lingering in the air. An official voice later declared, "We will take on cartels wherever they operate." The question lingers: will this be enough to deter the traffickers? The Venezuelan response has been swift and aggressive. President Nicolas Maduro mobilized militia units, sent F-16 jets on patrol, and conducted naval exercises near the coast. The crackle of distant gunfire and the flash of jet contrails paint a tense picture. A crucial moment remains: will the United States cross a line that could trigger full-scale conflict? Behind closed doors, intelligence officers are drafting plans for deep strikes within Venezuelan soil. Drone swarms, MQ-9 Reaper, are poised to strike at drug labs, transport vehicles, and smuggling hubs. The whir of rotors, the distant boom of explosions, and the metallic taste of fear saturate the atmosphere. Could a single night of drone strikes cripple the cartel's infrastructure? The campaign has shifted from interdiction to elimination. President Trump has designated several cartels. What if the next wave of drugs is delivered not by boats, but by invisible drones poised over Caracas? Imagine a silent thunderstorm of missiles, striking cartels while the world watches in stunned silence. Will the U.S. finally silence the traffickers, or will this spark a new, bloodier war? The answer is about to unfold. Last segment warned that drug smuggling is as dangerous as an invasion, and that the U.S. will employ drones or missiles to stop cartels. It also highlighted that any action will shake Maduro's regime, possibly triggering a coup. The president's message is simple: stop the flow now. The plan has worked before, and it will continue to work. The US will not tolerate poisonous drugs flooding our people. Do you feel the hum of a drone on the horizon? Do you hear the crack of a missile in the dark? These sounds will soon echo over Caracas. The US is ready to use drones or missiles for more drastic action. Will the sound of gunpowder become a new normal? The next strike could erase cartels or ignite a new war. The impact on Maduro's leadership will be immediate. If the cartels begin to fire back, will the president's allies turn against him? Could a coup be the inevitable outcome? The only question left is when and where America will strike first. Will the missiles hit the drug labs, or will they strike a hidden convoy of weapons? The tension rises. The world holds its breath. The next move will decide the fate of an entire nation.